I almost walked right past the best moment of my entire Europe trip. The funny thing is, it wasn't a famous landmark. It wasn't a museum. It wasn't the food. It wasn't even something I had planned. In fact, if I had kept following my schedule, I would have missed it completely. For most of my trip, I thought the best memories would come from checking famous places off my list. I was always looking at the next destination, the next train, the next attraction, the next photo. I was so focused on where I was going that I almost forgot to notice what was happening right in front of me. Then something completely unexpected happened. One small moment made me stop, and it changed the way I experienced the rest of my trip. Looking back now, I honestly believe that if I had missed that moment, I would have missed the most valuable lesson Europe had to teach me. In this video, I'll tell you what happened, why it almost slipped past me, and why I believe the best part of traveling is often the part you never plan. Chapter 1. Chasing the perfect Europe trip. When I first arrived in Europe, I had one goal: see as much as possible. I'd spent months planning the trip, saving places on maps, watching travel videos, making lists of landmarks I didn't want to miss. Every day had a plan, every hour had a purpose, and every destination felt important. I told myself that this might be my only chance to visit Europe, so I wanted to make every minute count. At first, it felt exciting. Crossing famous places off my list gave me a sense of accomplishment. I'd arrive somewhere, take it all in, snap a few photos, and then start thinking about the next stop, the next train, the next city, the next experience. Without realizing it, I had turned my trip into a checklist. I wasn't asking myself, how can I enjoy this moment? I was asking, what's next? And the strange thing was, the more places I visited, the more rushed I felt. Instead of slowing down to appreciate where I was, I kept worrying about where I needed to be next. I thought I was making the most of my trip, but looking back now, I was so busy trying not to miss anything, that I was in danger of missing the moments that actually mattered. I didn't know it then, but one unexpected stop was about to teach me that the best travel experiences aren't always the ones you plan. Sometimes, they're the ones you almost walk right past. And that's exactly what happened next. Chapter 2. The moment that wasn't on my itinerary. It happened on a day that was supposed to be just like any other. I had already planned where I wanted to go. I knew which train I needed to catch. I knew what I wanted to see. Everything was running according to schedule. Then something unexpected made me slow down. It wasn't a famous attraction. It wasn't a place that appeared in any travel guide. It was just a simple moment. I found myself sitting on a quiet bench for a few minutes while waiting before continuing my journey. For the first time that day, I wasn't checking a map. I wasn't looking at my itinerary. I wasn't thinking about the next destination. I simply looked around. I watched people going about their day. Locals chatting over coffee. Children laughing as they walked home. Cyclists passing by. Street musicians playing for anyone willing to stop and listen. Nothing extraordinary was happening, and yet, it felt different. For the first time since arriving in Europe, I wasn't trying to capture the moment. I was actually living it. I wasn't thinking about the next photo, or the next city, or whether I was making the most of my trip. I was simply present, and that's when something unexpected hit me. I realized I had spent so much time chasing Europe's famous highlights that I had almost overlooked the everyday moments that gave those places their real character. It wasn't the landmarks that suddenly made Europe feel special. It was watching ordinary life unfold around me. That quiet moment lasted only a few minutes, but it completely changed the way I looked at the rest of my trip. Because I started asking myself one important question: how many other meaningful moments had I rushed past without even noticing? That question stayed with me. And in the next chapter, I finally understood why that small, ordinary moment became the most memorable part of my entire Europe trip. Chapter 3. The moment I finally saw Europe differently. As I sat there, I started noticing things I had completely missed during the first part of my trip. Not because they weren't there, but because I had never slowed down long enough to see them. I noticed an elderly couple sharing a quiet conversation on a park bench. A cafe owner greeting regular customers by name. A father helping his young daughter feed a flock of pigeons. A street musician smiling every time someone stopped to listen. None of these moments would ever appear on a list of Europe's top attractions. But somehow, they made the city feel more alive than any famous landmark I had visited. And that's when something clicked. I realized I hadn't come all this way just to collect photos. I had come to experience a different way of life. To notice things that were unfamiliar. To learn. To grow. To see the world through fresh eyes. Yet without realizing it, I had been treating the trip like a race. A race from one attraction to the next. A race to check every box. A race to make every minute productive. But travel isn't a competition. No one hands out a prize for seeing the most landmarks. No one remembers how many places you squeezed into one day. What stays with you are the moments that made you feel something. And in that quiet corner of the city, doing absolutely nothing extraordinary, I felt more connected to Europe than I had during any of the famous stops on my itinerary. That's when I understood something I'll never forget. Sometimes, the best part of a trip isn't the place. It's the moment you finally stop rushing long enough to truly experience it. That realization changed everything. From that day forward, I stopped trying to conquer Europe. Instead, I let Europe unfold one moment at a time. And it completely transformed the rest of my journey. In the next chapter, I'll share the simple change I made that turned ordinary moments into my favorite travel memories. Chapter 4. When I stopped rushing, everything changed. The next morning, I made a promise to myself. I wasn't going to stop exploring. I wasn't going to throw away my plans. But I was going to stop treating every minute like a race. So instead of asking, how many places can I see today? I started asking, how can I experience this place today? It was a small change, but it completely changed the rest of my trip. I gave myself permission to stay longer when a place felt special. I stopped worrying if I didn't visit every attraction. I walked down streets that weren't on my itinerary. I sat in cafes a little longer. I watched the world go by instead of constantly checking the time. And something unexpected happened. The pressure disappeared. Travel became enjoyable again. Instead of collecting destinations, I started collecting moments. A friendly conversation with a local. A quiet sunrise before the city woke up. The smell of fresh bread drifting from a bakery. A musician filling a small square with music. None of these moments were expensive. None of them appeared on a top 10 things to do list. But they became the memories I still think about today. That's when I realized something that changed not only this trip, but every trip I've taken since. The best journeys aren't measured by how much you see. They're measured by how deeply you experience what you see. That one shift completely changed my relationship with travel. And honestly, it also changed the way I approach life. Because life can feel like a checklist too. Always chasing the next goal, the next achievement, the next milestone. But just like travel, some of the most meaningful moments happen when we slow down enough to notice them. And that's the lesson Europe quietly taught me. In the final chapter, I'll share why I believe almost missing that simple moment became the greatest gift my trip could have given me. Chapter 5. The best part of my trip was never on the map. When I look back on my Europe trip today, something surprises me. The memories I treasure most aren't the ones I spent months planning. They're not the landmarks I rushed to see. They're not the photos that got the most attention. They're the moments I never saw coming. The quiet streets I wandered without a destination. The conversations that lasted only a few minutes but stayed with me for years. The mornings when I slowed down enough to notice the city waking up. The evenings when I realized I didn't need to be anywhere else. Those are the moments that became the heart of my journey. For a long time, I thought successful travel meant seeing everything. Now I believe successful travel means truly experiencing something. There's a big difference. Anyone can visit a landmark. But not everyone allows themselves to be fully present while they're there. Europe taught me that unforgettable memories don't always come from extraordinary events. Sometimes they come from ordinary moments that we choose not to rush through. And the more I think about it, the more I realize this lesson isn't only about travel. It's about life. How often do we rush from one goal to the next, believing that happiness is waiting somewhere ahead. How often do we overlook the people, the conversations, and the simple moments happening right now because we're focused on what's next? That quiet afternoon in Europe reminded me that life isn't only made up of big milestones. It's made up of thousands of small moments. And those small moments often become the ones we remember the longest. So if you're planning your first trip to Europe, or any adventure you've been dreaming about, don't just leave room in your itinerary. Leave room to be surprised. Leave room to slow down. Leave room for moments that no guidebook could ever plan. Because the best part of your journey might be the part you never expected. And if you let it, it might change you in ways you never imagined. Ending. The journey I never planned. When I planned my Europe trip, I thought the best memories would come from the places I had circled on the map. The famous landmarks. The cities I dreamed about. The attractions everyone told me I had to see. But looking back now, those aren't the memories I return to most often. I remember the unexpected conversation, the quiet streets, the peaceful moments, the times when I finally stopped worrying about what was next, and simply appreciated where I already was. That's why I believe I almost missed the best part of my Europe trip. Not because it was hidden, but because I was moving too fast to notice it. And I wonder how often we do the same thing in everyday life. Always chasing the next goal, the next achievement, the next destination, believing that happiness is waiting somewhere ahead, when sometimes, it's quietly waiting right where we are. Europe gave me incredible memories. But the greatest souvenir I brought home wasn't something I could pack in my suitcase. It was a new way of seeing. A reminder that slowing down doesn't mean you're falling behind. Sometimes it means you're finally paying attention. So if you're planning your first Europe trip, or any journey you've been dreaming about, I hope you remember one thing. Visit the famous places. Take the photos. Enjoy the adventure. But don't be so busy chasing the highlights that you miss the moments in between. Because those moments might become the ones that stay with you forever. Thank you so much for spending these few minutes with me. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment while traveling, or even in everyday life, that completely changed the way you see the world? Share your story in the comments. I read every one, and I'd genuinely love to hear it. If you enjoy honest travel stories, first-time Europe experiences, and the lessons that travel quietly teaches us, I'd love to have you join our growing Travel Wander community by subscribing. Until next time, travel with curiosity, slow down, and never underestimate the moments that aren't on the map. I'll see you in the next adventure.